there's a question which is, what happens if an emerging market defaults? What does that mean for a VC startup, and how do super cycles relate to that? So maybe I'll ask Faisal if you'd like to go first, and then we can have Kian's insights to it.
I think this is that question that keeps me up at night, because I think the first thing that'll happen, my fund blows up and LPs don't honor the commitment.
This is the nightmare. This is the nightmare.
Yeah, this is the nuclear scenario. I know it sounds like it's, look, so I'll give you some stats right now. I think out of the 73 emerging and frontier market, out of the debt like countries out there, almost about 25% of them are distressed. Their debt actually traded in public markets, right? That's a major issue. This was expected. You have to think of the Fed as raising interest rates as effectively like a wrecking ball, right? When they raise rates, it's like a magnet. The US dollar 10-year treasury is the replacement of gold in our system. So as they raise rates, the dollar scarcity kicks in, and you start to see most of the debt's been priced in dollars for most of these countries. And so then the country devalues, and it's like a cycle. People in the country panic. They basically run to the dollar as a safe haven. Like there's further devaluation unless you have really good
the vicious or virtuous cycle, depending on where you're at, which side you're at.
Exactly. And so and the dollar has to do this, right? So think of the dollar, like at the end of the reserve currency, they do the strongest superpower in the world. When they keep printing repeatedly, eventually that dollar, which is a stick, turns into a bamboo stick, and then they have to raise rates to make it back into a kind of effectively remind us that they're the reserve currency, right? And right now, everywhere you go, if we default, which I don't think we're going to, because we'll find either strategic partners that will park money in Pakistan, because we're a very important country as a nuclear state. The world is betting. I mean, these are again like hopium combined with facts, but you have to realize that the world in 2008, the BRICS, after the 2008 GFC, the BRICS, and particularly China, grew the world out of the crisis. We need growth.
Yes.
It's a deep event.
Yes.
In 2000.
So it's not a pipe dream. It's not a pipe dream.
It's not a pipe dream. So now look, everybody, at least in the West, is betting on India's growth. That is their number one target for the next 5 years. India is going to grow the world out of this crisis. And then the rest of us.
China, and the sort of an equalizing factor in this sort of geopolitical.
China's much further along in the credit cycle. So India, people see as a bigger growth opportunity, along with the next 11, like Indonesia, Pakistan, and everybody, right? If Pakistan defaults as a nuclear state, there's a massive destabilization effect, which then spills over to India. We're officially 220, but that's underreporting on the census. We're at least 250 million people. It's human nature. We've seen this play out in Syria, in Libya, in all these countries. Iraq, people will have to move on land, right? So the world can't afford that. Our debt is pittance when you compare it to I'll refer to what Kian said earlier. This is part of my thesis as well. You cannot use GDP as a measure of growth in these economies. What he was referring to is the reason why we're all investing in Pakistan is the unlocking of the informal economy, which in my opinion is at least 100% more. So we're probably a $600 billion to an $800 billion economy. So our current 80% debt to GDP ratio is probably closer to 40% if that gets unlocked by tech. I call it digital documentation, right? Because once you order something on Foodpanda, for example, even if you're settling in cash,
you're documented. You're on.
Good luck trying to prove later on when this data is interconnected, when your declared income is like $100 a month, and your food bill is $1,000 a month, right?
Yeah. So we'll have the data to prove you wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. So look, I don't think the world is so. I think that generally all the smart superpowers in the world that are digital superpowers today, they understand this equation. This is really a geopolitical event. It's about, are the Saudis and the GCC, the largest buyer is China. Are they flipping to that side and starting to settle somewhat in the renminbi energy bond? Not even renminbi. They have an energy bond that's settled. So is it 10% goes there or left or right? And then Pakistan's that middle ground. So if you ignore the noise, the chances in the documented GDP financial system analysis, we are in a pretty tough situation. $32 billion has to be refinanced next year. In reality, I've done the analysis. 15 billion is the real one. Most of that is like government to government that will be restructured very easily. The commercial
Right.
one is the Eurobonds. The government has already earmarked $1.5 billion for it. There's a remaining $4.5 billion of commercial debt that they do need to identify money for. The rest of the 9 billion will get restructured as well. That's bilateral and multilateral. So it's not that bad. I think our newspapers and you know the local WhatsApp community starts circulating stuff. I can't comment on fiscal and monetary policies that are suicidal because in reality, that's exactly what's played out, right? I'm apolitical, but literally coming and trying to control the free market and your spread goes from 10 rupees from the banking rate to the open market and then to 30 rupees. You're setting yourself up for a snap where basically effectively your remittances have dropped because sorry, excuse my language, but it's like only an idiot would wire money through official channels and you're getting a rate of 224 to the dollar when the open market is sitting at 250 to 260. So effectively there's offline settlements happening now, right? Where people are giving people money and they're settling it in rupees and Pakistan. So unfortunately that is there. I don't think we default, but if we do default, you won't see me in a panel here in the future. I'll be driving an Uber in Dubai or something.
So we'll be looking for Faisal if that ever eventuality comes. But good to know that we are not going to go that route. And I will just chime in here with what Faisal is saying, that it's all economics. It's supply and demand, and nothing, whether it's the dollar rate or whatever you are trying to do, nothing in the economy can be artificially imposed. So, just a general comment here, but Kian, any views on that?
No, I mean, I don't have such a critical insight on the economic side as Faisal had, but as he says, the quantum of kind of the debt outstanding in the global scheme of things is not terribly high that it cannot be restructured or solved in some formal manner. So probably the probability of a default is, I mean, not low, but not super high. I think actually it pays to look at the experience of Latin America in this regard. I mean, there you have a country, Argentina, that has the record of the
Argentina that went into default.
Years.
Yeah.
It also has a similar narrative of kind of a handful of countries that hold a lot of promise but have never really delivered on it. But at the same time, over the past 10 years, you've just seen the proliferation of kind of quite large and successful technology companies there. And if you look at Brazil during 2014 and 17, you had the height of political instability and the height of economic instability. Yet those were the years where
they're correlated, actually. Kian, unfortunately, they're correlated. Yeah,
they're joined at the hip. But you had companies like Nubank and Mercado Libre to reform. That's not to say that to have this naive, arbitrary view of in any environment. No, it's difficulty levels just increase significantly. It doesn't mean that value cannot be created. It just means that the talent and wherewithal of the founders has to be much higher. And the opportunity set that they're working on has to have a real use case. It cannot be edge cases where it's a nice to have and must be a must to have.